Oh, Foxy, it's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
I'm just going to call for
Welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is the air on?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I apologize in advance. It's just very early, so my brain is not entirely functioning. So if I miss somebody, tell me. Trey,
Yes.
Monica,
Yes.
Mark,
Here,
Joy.
Here.
All right, everybody's here, so we can begin anytime you want.
Okay.
What I would like everybody to do is a round robin of questions. Please make sure that everybody asks them.
Is it okay if we film?
Yes. Oh, ask them.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to ask at the beginning of every interview.
The risk is yours.
Okay.
that's a good answer to that.
Yeah.
You have the slim
You
lens?
think it's wise?
My husband.
You're using the slim lens? Yes, we are. For me. Thank you.
But I think
Okay.
I'm sucking in my teeth.
What can you tell us about the Muppet rebranding at the Disney Studios? Is there any news that you guys are privy to regarding what's happening there?
No, I think everything's out there that we know, right?
I
Yeah, I
know
mean,
nothing. My lips are sealed.
I don't know how much of a rebranding, but I think it's...
It's a retheming of the roller coaster.
Oh, you're talking about the roller coaster?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah, I mean, they just did the announcement, and we were there in Orlando to do that. Some of us went down there, and I think it's going to be really fun. The ideas, we spent a little time with the Imagineering people there, and they were very collaborative, and it was fun. It was great. I went on the roller coaster. I hadn't been on it in years.
He has all the fun.
Yeah, I got to have fun on this one. But I think it's going to be fun. I think the ideas that they came up with and how it's going to be incorporated, I think will be pretty cool.
I'm afraid of roller coasters.
I wouldn't go. Not me.
Yeah.
I see that Ferris wheel outside our hotel.
Yes.
Scary
You're going on.
Scary. Yeah.
All right. How about more questions? We'll just.
That's it, right? We're done?
Yes.
Try the veal.
Mark with Blurredography. My question is for all three of you. Since you help create iconic characters with their voices, their animations, their movements, how hard is it to leave the character behind once you are off to other and greater things with the puppets that you have created or voiced or manipulated?
Well, I have two answers for that. The only reason I would leave a character is, one, it appears in the park and we can't go there every day. Or two, I'm dead and I don't care.
Well, I didn't do any of those characters, but if they don't do it the way I think they should, after I created those puppets, then I would be very upset. But everybody's been incredible about the characterizations of these characters that have been so much part of my life for so long, and they're genius.
I just realized we didn't introduce ourselves. Bonnie is a master designer and puppet maker,
Yeah,
and worked with the Muppets from 72, was it? Or
70 to 77.
70 to 77.
And then more.
And then more later. And then left with her husband and started a mascot designing company,
No.
as well as advertising.
Yeah.
And go ahead, you do it.
Can I just say, and the
Yeah.
characters, some of the ones that she created and designed, and I have to say, I know that when you first said I didn't do those characters, but you build character into your designs. That I think inspires people to create.
I hope that's true.
It's
Of course it
absolutely
is.
true.
It's absolutely true. When you see it, there's something, at least from my perspective, when I see a puppet as beautifully built as the ones that you make, there's something that I get from that. So, of course. But for me, the only thing I think I've left, a character that I had to leave just because of situation of travel and it just wasn't convenient, was I did Elmo's dad for a little while. I started off doing Elmo's dad, and I had to give that up. I love the character, but fortunately, there was another great puppeteer named Tyler Bunch, and he took on the character, and that kind of just worked out. But I don't know, it's leaving them behind. I think same with Dave, when I die, I'll leave it behind again.
And I left all the characters to these guys who really, I left them in good hands, as it were.
Well, to elaborate on that a little bit, we just work with an incredible bunch of people, and we love each other, and in spite of Bill's behavior. But
So,
the collaboration, it's always been about collaboration. You know, like people said, well, how do you create characters? I said, well, it was Jim, the writers, and the workshop, and the performers. It just comes from all directions. You know,
and it was fantastic fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Joy Stevens with the Moana Nui podcast. The question I have for all three of you is, growing up myself as a Gen Xer, born in '74, so I grew up with the Muppets being a part of my life, family almost. And how does it feel to be a part of something that is so internationally appreciated, a part of so many children's lives, grown-ups' lives, etc.? Like, sometimes we can feel kind of small. I wonder how y'all feel about helping create that universe.
It's just good fortune and an honor.
Really
Just
good.
so lucky.
Grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, gratitude.
But it was truly the collaboration of everybody together that made it happen. And in fact, I think that we had fun doing it, and I think that shows in the projects that Jim did, because he was definitely the head honcho for all of that play that we did.
But he allowed it. He allowed everybody to do what they could do best. And he only gently corrected if he wanted it to go a little different direction. But we were in a creative job where we got to be creative. It was really astonishing. And our producer for Fraggle Rock, Larry Merkin, once said that everybody's working in service of the best idea. And we know it, If I'm doing something and Bill has an idea, we all know if it's better. It's usually not, but but we all know if it's better, and we go with it. We just jump on it. So that's the fun of it,
I think as somebody who came later, these are originators of that world that you talked about. And I came later, I pinch myself to think that I get to do this and be with these people and learn early on kind of the natural, not experience, but the
process.
Yeah, the process and the air about how they all work together that Jim inspired in all of them, and so I learned through them how to play and just I don't know. It's I can't exactly put it into words other than it's a feeling and an inspiration that I got from these people, and so I'm just grateful that I'm allowed to wiggle little dollies and be stupid.
We call Jim the gentle anarchist, because he really did encourage all of that. And I traveled with the Jim Henson Legacy has been a sponsor of some of these tours that we've done to different museums. Everyone who comes to me to talk about what it meant to them as kids, I found that so many of them watched with their families. And this is something different than a lot of TV programs at the time, but this was something that everybody in the family could enjoy, and they really, it stayed with them. I think that was something that really resounded with them throughout time and brought them to these museum shows that we did with our installations.
Yeah, it's just, it's a fantasy. I remember when I was just out of high school, I went to see Hard Day's Night, the Beatles movie. And I got so just revved up by that thing that I came out of the movie and I thought, God, I would love to be one of those guys. I would love to be part of a phenomena. And in a smaller way, more subtle way, we've been around for so long. It goes back to 1955. And, we all joined later than that, but it was really, really amazing. Just a wonderful thing to have all of that connection with the public, but also be anonymous, and we could just go out to lunch and nobody ever recognizes us. It's great.
Monica with the Vicky Diva. What is your favorite character and or movie that's for the Muppets?
Boy, that's
for the Muppets that you work?
It's really hard because they're all parts of us.
Yeah.
When we start a character, it's a function of those entities I mentioned. The workshop creates it and then creates the puppet, and that suggests to us what it would sound like, how it would move. And so those are all parts of us. In my case, I think Gonzo is probably the easiest one to do because he can say anything, you know? He just can say anything. So there's no pressure of trying to create a construction on the fly, like a character like Bunsen Honeydew. He's so silly when he's on set, but you know, I have to edit myself when I'm doing publicity with him, and it's you know, but together we just play like crazy. So he's part of me too. He's the part that misses the big picture. You know, he's hyper focused on detail, and it's like a train runs over him. So I don't know. That's my answer. Go ahead.
Who's yours?
Oh, well, I have a similar, and it's kind of boring, but I guess I have a favorite. They're favorites when I'm in the moment and performing them, because like Dave was saying, some of them I draw from people I know, like Pepe is my wife's aunt, and Johnny Fiama is my dad and my grandfather. So they're special to me for different reasons, and I draw from those personalities. So it's not so much which is my favorite, but I just enjoy them when I get to do them. So it's a boring answer, but that's the truth.
Which was your favorite to design?
I love them all because I love process. And believe me, it takes time. Actually, my favorites still are Statler and Waldorf because I've seen them naked.
And they love it.
Yeah, they do.
Trey with Daddy Mojo. A prawn is funny. A shrimp is not. Were there any other characters or animals that you thought really had legs but didn't make it off the workshop table?
The prawn is funny? You think he's funny?
A prawn is funny. A shrimp is not.
Shrimp doesn't make it though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Because he could be a king prawn. It could be
Yes,
his ego.
exactly.
You know, and
I don't think there's anything you made that didn't work out.
Yeah, I can't think of one that, I don't know, Davey.
well, and then the way that happened was a puppet was made, and Bill was playing around. We gathered in London. We were all playing around with new puppets that showed up, and Bill just got that guy. And then who decided he was a prawn?
Well, he wasn't finished. The actual, excuse me, the puppet was just kind of these, like a couple wires coming up and a little flappy mouth, little small thing with two eyes on it, and he had a little sweater. It wasn't even finished, and I just grabbed it and we were playing around, and I would, my wife's aunt came to visit us in England. She's Spanish, she's from Madrid, and she's such a funny character. She's this little mischievous lady, and she didn't speak a lot of English, and she would always say things like to me like, "You're wearing a black shirt, okay?" And I'd say, "Okay," and she'd, "You're going to the carpet, okay?" Okay. So I just thought there's these statements that she would say all the time, and I thought that would be kind of funny. So then I was sitting with Kirk Thatcher, designer and director with the Muppets and writer for years, and I was explaining to Kirk, it's so silly, I was explaining to Kirk about her personality, and I said, you know, she's mischievous and she's got a great laugh. She's a little selfish. And Kirk said, "Did you say shellfish?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, oh wow, what if it's like a crab or a lobster or a shrimp?" And I said, "Oh, a shrimp, but I think he's got a problem with the complex. So he's a king prawn, you know." And then
You're right about the prawn part.
yeah, I can't remember who then designed him, but I remember Eric Eccleston built him.
Oh yeah?
Just no pattern or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so a beautiful design, beautiful character.
Yes, he
So I'm
is.
lucky to have him. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
In today's media, how important are the puppetry arts, and how can the puppetry arts stand up to CGI and computer animation, some of these newer processes that's dominating entertainment today?
Wow, that's a fancy question.
Mm-hmm.
We're just itinerant folk artists, so we don't think about our place in the world. We just do our thing.
Yeah. I like that it's not CG, just there are things that you feel like you can really, excuse me, something in my throat, if you want to believe it, you can believe that they're in our world, and you can live with them, and they're next to you, and they can touch you, and you can go on a talk show, and people can really interact, and
It's important.
and so I think it's a real connection. And I obviously CG and that stuff is yours separated, even though as beautiful and real as these things are that they create. To me, it's about being in the same space with something.
I have to relate being on the set in England when we were doing the Muppet Show. If you think it was fun to watch it, you have no idea how much fun it was to be there. To see the play with these performers using these characters off camera. I mean, not giving up the roles. And then you have to understand, a lot of puppets are done to a lip sync or something like that. These are characters who came out of these personalities, the crazy people.
And her. And you too.
Well,
Absolutely.
and
Everybody in
the group.
in the workshop.
And so we played all the time. And I think play is such an important part of learning, of experiencing, of process. All of that is something that anybody can do. And I think the fact that we had such a good time doing it is seen in the product.
Yeah. I would add just that for us to work as puppeteers has the benefits that Bill mentioned in the play, that we can do spontaneously. We can do it live on a talk show. But there are also strengths that we can't do that are involved with CG. So, that's a magical thing. The camera can go anywhere. Anything can happen. Cell animation has stretch and squash. I don't think CG has that yet. So all these methods have their pros and cons. We just happen to live in this one, and we love doing it because we have so much fun together. We get an immediate result. As soon as we screw up, everybody knows. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
Considering how much fun y'all had together, do you have any moments in mind that, like, this was the most fun day, or I can't believe this happened, or like funny stories that stick with you?
Not so funny. I have a sad story.
Oh.
When I was working on Statler, I had finished everything. I had carved him. I had put the nose on. I had the ears together.
You should say those puppets are carved out of a solid block of foam with, carving knife and scissors. So it takes a long time to make one.
So I had it just about ready to go, but there was one spot that was just a little rough. And so I went up to the belt sander, which was how I smoothed out the surface.
The scissor marks go.
And I lost my concentration for 1 second, and I sent that head right through the belt sander to the other side of the room with a hole through the whole thing. And I went downstairs. I did what my mentor, Don Saline, said I should do. I went up to the roof. I found some terracotta pots, and I threw them against the wall until I felt better. and then I started all over again.
This is just, it's so true. They're handmade works of art, In fact, the first time I saw them in a museum, I think it was Exposition Park in LA, to see our characters in glass cases, all specially lit and posed and everything, I realized, holy cow, these things are fine art. These are, because, the pockets used to be lined. The jackets used to be lined. The pockets would really work. And on. You could go on and on about the degree of love that was put into these things. And they just stayed that way for years and years, just like beautiful works of art. And all of a sudden, I didn't see them as tools anymore. I saw them as art.
And I think that's why everybody who worked in the shop as well really loved working there, because not only could we do the puppets, but we built the clothes. We had people who were specialists. Statler and Waldorf had a tailor who was one of our people. And they all had the opportunity to do props as well. I mean, we really had the full scope of a performance available in the workshop to give to the performers who were going to be the puppeteers.
Piggy, during the Muppet Show, sort of acquired a costumier, and it was Clesta Hendrickson. And it was publicized as House of Callista. House of Callista. This was the Piggy's designer.
I remember one, I think you had asked about, was there something maybe that we remember from we were doing Muppets Tonight, and Tony Bennett was a guest, and I was a huge fan of Tony Bennett. And so he's an artist as well. I don't know if you know, but he's a painter. And an artist. And so when we started working, he was fascinated with the design and the color and the shapes. And it was that he'd look at, and there's this character, Johnny Fiama, that's supposed to be interviewing him, right? And it's like a talk show. And he's not really connecting with Johnny. He's looking down at me, and he's looking at the design. I love the hair. And so Brian Henson came over. He said, Bill, he's not like focusing. Is there a way you can draw? And so in between takes, I had Johnny turn to him. And I said, Tony, you know what's wrong about L.A.? He goes, what? I said, you know what's wrong about L.A.? He goes, well, what, Johnny? You can't get good bread. That's right. It's in the water. And if you don't have the right water, you can't get the right pasta either. That's right. What kind of pasta you like, Tony? I love cavatelli. I don't know. And now they're talking, right? And now he's interacting with him and playing. And I remember, what a fun thing to pull somebody in that way. I never thought about it, And so that was just a fun moment for me to get to play with him and bring him into that,
You can cut this, but I'm going to tell you a story about Tony Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Bennett contributed money to a high school in Queens, New York, and built the whole thing out in Astoria, and called it the Frank Sinatra High School. He's the most amazing man. He was just so generous. I think people should know that. I have these pimples.
Can I say one more thing about Tony Bennett?
Yes, please.
Just because he's an artist, he was sitting in his trailer outside of our stage, and there was a TV in there, and he could watch what we were shooting. And he has a sketch pad that he takes with him everywhere, apparently. And so at the end of the day, he came in and he opened his sketch pad and he said, "Hey, Bill, Brian, Kevin, I want to show you something." And we came over, and he drew Johnny Fiama and Johnny's sidekick Sal Manella, the monkey, and Clifford, Kevin's character, who was the host of it, said, "Would you sign this for me?" And we couldn't believe it. I said, "Are you kidding?" He said, "No, I'd love you to sign it." And so then we all signed it. And about 3 years later, I went to see him in concert. And I went back to see him afterwards. And he had the sketchbook. He goes, "I want to give you something." And he opened it, and he tore it out, and he gave me the drawing. And
Did he sign it?
I said, "Will you sign it for me?"
This is why we're grateful. Almost like a Walter Mitty experience.
Oh my God.
We're so fortunate to meet so many people, go so many places, and perform in so many different ways. A lot of television, film, and also some live performances. We performed at the Hollywood Bowl, Carnegie Hall, the O2 Arena in London, some other things too. I can't remember. Royal Variety, Outside Lands in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
We were actually rated by Rolling Stone as one of the top 5 bands.
Yeah, that's great.
We don't even play our instruments.
Yeah, pre-recorded concert.
Yeah. And then another press outlet said they were the best. It was just so surreal. We just magically walk into these worlds, and it's thrilling.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year, but Elmo made his first tweet, and the world responded in such a visceral manner. My question for you is, does it surprise you that the world actually sees your creations as real people?
I do.
For a long time.
So it doesn't really surprise me.
Well, that's what we try to do. They are real in the sense that they are part of somebody, a performer. And this whole team gets together and writes accordingly and builds accordingly and so forth. So it's always our effort. They're real to us. They are specific characters. We know who they are. So I think I would say this, that back when we did the Muppet Show, we never performed live, hardly at all, like once in a while, but not much. And so I was just having fun in this room. There were no windows. It was just this big room where we had fun every day and played and competed with each other and upstaged. And then I would come back to the States and go to a party or something, and if somebody told somebody else what I did, everybody would start watching me all evening. I immediately thought, oh my God, this is what famous people have to deal with. You know, you turn around and they're looking at you, picking up a potato chip. And, you know, and I had that for like just the evening of a party, and then I went back to normal. And I just thought, oh, first of all, I don't want to be famous. It's just too much scrutiny. And second, it's just, I found out that people were watching. You know, we were just playing. It didn't even connect to me that people were watching this stuff.
But Mark, I think to your question, that the fact that people have related to them does always surprise me in the numbers and the recognition that people have for these characters after all these years. It's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Jim Henson was miraculous in that he would like to have a lot of depth in the shot. So there was a main story going on in the foreground, but up on the balcony, Rizzo the Rat had his own little psychodrama going with props that Steve would pick up. And it was how he was learning to perform. He was doing it in the background. And then there were all sorts of other layers that we like to put in. So that provide, and there was a huge range of character types. So that meant that, you know, a given episode is going to connect with different people in different ways. So, you know, you watch something like this or like films, and you might see yourself on screen.
I think Jim fostered tapestry.
Oh, that's a great line.
So rich.
Yeah.
So always something to see. And I think he told me once, if people see this more than once, I want them to find something else there.
Yeah.
Which you could.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
how did y'all get started, each of you? And when did you know this was what you wanted to do forever?
Oh, okay. Well, I started
first.
No, you started first. You go first. You go.
I saw Jim on TV. I was a costumer in New York for about 7 years before I worked with Jim.
The stage mostly?
Yeah, it was all legitimate theater. And so I had seen these things that he did on the variety shows. They were so clever. They were so abstract. They were so sort of head trips. And so I had heard from a friend, actually I think it was Fran Brill, said that Jim was looking for a costumer. And I'm going, oh yeah, right, thanks, Fran. But she called me the second time. She said, no, really, he is looking for a costumer. I said, okay. And I brought my portfolio to show him and Diana Birkenfield, who was the producer at the time. And I had just finished doing an opera in all plastic. And I think that appealed to Jim in some very strange way. I had also done these very life-size muslin women wearing my antique clothing collection. So I guess he just thought I had the skills, I probably could do something. So my first job with him, which was very exciting, was doing the costumes for Frog Prince. And it was once I got into that group, there was no way I would want to leave. I mean, I just loved everybody there. Don Celine was my first mentor, who played a trick on me the first day I came in. I mean, this was a community. Don had this lump of foam, and it was at the end of the table. Jim put me at his table, and Don was a little proprietary about things. So me coming in as a new person always shook him up a little bit. So I'm sitting at the table, and there's this lump of foam, and it has pock marks and some feathers sticking out of it. It was looking really pretty grotty. And I started sketching. I took out my paper, and I was drawing, and I thought I saw it move. And I looked, and no, it hadn't moved. And it happened like 3 times. The third time, I reached over and I grabbed it. I picked it up. It was hollow inside, and Don had tied a string to the inside, drilled a hole in the table, down to the floor where there was an eye hook, and he had a string that went to his foot. Because I would see he was working with his hands. I was sure it wasn't, him doing this. He was using his foot to make it move. And that was, I passed the test, I'm happy to say. And that was the beginning of the rest of my wonderful career with the Henson Company.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Don.
Don blew up my desk one day. I had stuff all over it, papers, little sheets of foam. And I came in. He had been there the night before and rigged this elaborate thing. And he waited until I was deep in concentration. And then, boom, a dynamite squib went off right in front of me. And all this stuff flew up into the air. I screamed. But Don had been there, and he had, again, put the squib in, drilled a hole in the table, run the electrical cord, the electrical wire, down to the floor, over to the wall and along the baseboard. He was sitting about as far as you are from me, and then he had a doorbell button and a 6-volt battery under his desk. So all he had to do was wait for the right moment and just go boom.
John was in touch with NASA, and he was really involved in all of this, and he was the master at small explosions. But we did one, I forget which network it was we were doing, maybe it was Sex and Violence, that seems perfect. I was his assistant, and we almost blew up the studio. We were told we couldn't do any of those special effects anymore. We had to call in somebody who was licensed.
Well, how'd you get to start, Davey?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even answer your question.
You forgot.
That's okay.
Okay. I don't remember. No, I was working in Silicon Valley at Hewlett-Packard. Nice job, career for life. And I felt a little constrained. So I just thought I just have to be ready if something else comes up. But of course, nothing was going to come up. What would come up that was a great company to work for? It was a good job. I had the next 40 years. I had a job. I could retire. They'd give me a watch. Anyway, but then I saw...
You were a designer.
I was an industrial designer. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was an industrial designer there. So I designed what products looked like and how you interacted with them. So, it was nice. It was a restrained job. I was always cutting up and doing pranks outside of work. And then I saw Sesame Street. And that just set the wheels in motion. 2 months later, I figured, I've just got to have my own Ernie. And I went looking for fleece, which is what the Muppets are covered with. It's not available in stores. So I went to 15 yardage shops. I couldn't find this stuff. And I started making Ernies out of stretched terry cloth or whatever I could find. And that led to another puppet, and another one, and another one. And now people are inviting me to parties if I bring the character. And I was also being asked by teachers, by the wives of guys that I worked with who were teaching first grade, if I'd bring Ernie out there, because they knew Ernie. And so I said, well, if I can charge my time to your department. So, I was getting paid to go do a little puppet show for 5-year-olds. And after I left, the first one, the teacher said, so let's write a letter to thank Mr. Goelz. And the kids go like, who? The guy that was with Ernie. No, we didn't see anybody. And right then I knew it was a magic trick. It was just an amazing thing. So, that sort of led to me building all these puppets. And then, cutting ahead, I visited New York, and I had met Frank Oz, and he'd said I could visit Sesame Street. So I was there for a week, took vacation time. And on the second day, Carol Spinney, who did Big Bird, said, you should show these puppets to Bonnie. They're really good. So I went over, I thought, oh boy. And I went over, and I walked into this second floor workshop, and there was a big work table. And all I could see was Ernie sitting there on a stand. He was my god. And I got up close to him, and I was just studying his smile curves and the irregular hairline that he had. That's a whole separate story. That's a Don Saline story. But it was just like seeing this gorgeous figure there. And then I realized somebody was looking at me because Bonnie was sitting at the table working. And she said, these are really, and I showed her my puppets because Carol had called her. And so, she said, these are really good puppets. Jim should see these. And I'm thinking, Jim should see these. Whoa. And I went back to work at Hewlett-Packard and, just thought nothing more of it. I had, if Jim should see these, I had enough to live on for the rest of my life. And then the phone rang, and it was Jim. And he said, can you come to LA? And I'd like to see your work. And so I went down there, And I'm not going to get into all the detail of that, but it was really amazing. And so that led eventually to me coming to New York for a summer. And I took a 6-month leave of absence from HP. My argument was, this is cutting edge media, and it will benefit my designs at HP to be a part of this for a little while. And they gave me a leave of absence, and then they replaced me before I was coming back. So my future was set then. Anyway, go ahead. How did you? No, you're the other one.
Oh, I'll make quick. Are we out of time?
Yeah, this will be our last.
Okay. So I'll do this as fast as I can. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, a very crazy, entertaining family. I have a brother who's 4 years older than me. He always orchestrated whatever we did with our lives. If he wanted to make a movie, I was in his movie. And he would make me do things. Okay, jump off the roof. Okay, I'd jump off the roof. If he was going to do an animation, he would make a clay animation. I would help him do that. And so I was always trying to entertain. We would always have shows for our families. We'd get together almost every weekend, our family, big family. And we would do these kind of variety shows with all the cousins. So I loved entertaining, and I want to be an actor, I guess, is what I thought, whatever that meant. And my brother, I think he was around 14 years old maybe, he wrote to Jim, because he wanted to know how to make a Muppet. And he wrote to him, and he's 14, but he created a letterhead for himself. And in the corner of the letterhead were all these characters that he drew, and Bert and Ernie were in there, kind of mixed in. And he sent it, and Jim sent back instructions on how to make a Muppet. And he said, "I love your letterhead," to Jim. Anyway, long story short, my brother and my cousin built some puppets, and I was again just helping. My aunt was a deaf-mute teacher, and we went to her school to do little shows for her kids, which, by the way, they would put these big speakers they had at the time on the floor, facing the floor, so the kids could feel the vibrations. So all of our shows were musically driven and about behavior and not talking, really. It was explosions and that kind of stuff. And so I never thought I would ever do puppets in my life, and I just wanted to be an actor, so I was pursuing that. And I went to, long story short, I worked at a place called Sesame Place in the summer, and I was 17. I met this kid named Jim Henson who happened to work there the same summer. We became friends over the summer and kept in touch over the next 10 years. I eventually, after Jim had passed, I was studying in New York with an amazing acting teacher, and I was moving to California. I wanted to go to the West Coast to pursue acting. And the teacher I had, it was all about, interpreting dialogue through behavior. That's what an actor, that's one of the skills, right, is interpreting dialogue through behavior. Don't worry about the dialogue. Learn it, forget it, but it's all about behavior. So I moved to California. I'm trying to get a job. Jim had just passed away, and Brian became the head of the company, and they were going to make a show called Dinosaurs, about a family of dinosaurs. And they had just done the Ninja Turtle movie, and there was this new technology with the animatronic heads and people in the suits. And I said to Brian, because he came out to LA, we were talking, I said, "I don't care, I'll sweep the floors, I just need to be near it, I don't care, whatever it is." He said, "Well, we're doing these characters with big suits and animatronic heads. I've seen you do Jackie Gleason before, like Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners, and there's this character, it's kind of like," he said, "Do you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "But you'd be in a suit." I was like, "What the hell does that mean?" And he said, "Well, there are these dinosaurs, they big rubber dinosaurs, and you'd be inside." And I thought, do I say the dialogue? No, you don't say the dialogue. The puppeteer is operating the head. They do all the dialogue. I said, interpreting dialogue for behavior. There's my job. And so I shaved my head. I needed to look like a dinosaur. Mr. Method, I shaved my head so I could look like a dinosaur at my audition. And however it worked out, I ended up getting the role as the dad. So I was inside of the dad. And so it was the first Henson and Disney collaboration on a TV series, I believe. And that's where I fortunately met this man. He did Earl's head. He was the puppeteer for Earl's head and the voice in my head inside when I was in there. And Steve Whitmire was on it, Kevin Clash as the baby, Brian, all of these amazing performers that had worked with Henson over the years. I got to kind of know them, and then over time, I don't know, we kind of farted around and had fun. We're silly and played. We played, right?
A lot.
We played a lot. And I don't know how it happened, but eventually they let me take a little puppet home. I borrowed one from the creature shop, a little raccoon. And I went home and I tried to work with a camera because I was watching, when I wasn't in Earl, I watched how they would do puppets on the stage because there were some puppet characters that they would, shoot as well as the big walk-around ones. And so I went home and I practiced. I just tried to learn how to see things and watch the camera in reverse and all that stuff. And I don't know, I just assisted in something. Something came along after Dinosaurs ended, and then it just, over time, I got to just create some characters. And I mean, I don't know how to put it, but I guess I took on some of Jim's that he wasn't doing any longer, and so I've been fortunate to be able to keep those guys going as best I can. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my story.
So the best thing we can say is thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.